Welcome YouTube and welcome ARPG fans, this is Wrecked by Protoss, and you might have or you might have not known about Last Epoch yet, but now you will for sure. So in this video I'm gonna first give you a quick overview of what Last Epoch is, and then I'm gonna go more in depth into a couple of topics. So what is Last Epoch? Last Epoch is an upcoming ARPG that will feature a main campaign with 9 chapters, and it will feature 5 classes with 3 masteries each, so you have a total of 15 masteries at release. You will have a passive talent tree system for each base class and also for each of these masteries, and in total you will be able to probably spend around 120 passive points here. Now what really sets apart Last Epoch from other ARPGs is that every single skill that you can use has an active skill tree, so you can customize each skill to your liking, and skills have a max level of 20, so you can freely allocate up to 20 points in each skill tree. The maximum character level is 100 right now, and I think that's also not gonna change for release. Besides the traditional ways of getting items in ARPGs such as killing mobs or opening chests, you can also get items through gambling, and you can also use every non-unique item in the game and then use the forging system to forge in some additional affixes or to improve the affixes of that item. The game will also feature a idle system, which is basically like charms in Diablo 2. It will have multiplayer with servers, ladders, and trading. In this game, the trading hub will be called the Bazaar. Also, it will feature several endgame modes at release. I think 4 to 5 are planned right now, and one of those is even PvP. They also have currently scheduled their release for 4th quarter of 2020, so the game might come out by the end of this year, but maybe they might also take some additional time and release it next year, who knows. I think I'm speaking for most of you guys when I say that we want a finished product rather than another Wilson moment. So I hope this small intro caught your interest in Last Epoch, and you're gonna stick around as I'm gonna cover the following topics a little bit more in depth. So first of all, I'm gonna quickly present to you the classes of this game. Then I'm gonna talk about the passive talent tree system, how you gain passive points, how you respec passive points. Then I'm gonna give you a quick introduction into all the masteries, show you some skills, and also show you how the skill tree system works, and also how you respec skill points or skills. Then I'm also gonna cover items in this game, the forging system, which is kind of like the crafting system, and talk about the islets real quickly. Then I'm gonna start a new character, show you the intro, and shortly give you an overview of the UI in the game, and also try to explain every single character stat in your character sheet. After that, we're gonna take a quick look at the first and the second hub in the game, and show you around, and show you all the NPCs that you get there. And then last but not least, I'm gonna talk about the current endgame, the 2 current endgame systems, the monolith and the arena. Note that I am primarily a Grim Dawn streamer, and I usually only do Grim Dawn videos, so some of my comparisons to other ARPGs might be only comparisons to Grim Dawn, because, well, Grim Dawn is like the only ARPG I really have some proper idea about, and because of that I do sometimes compare stuff in Last Epoch to how stuff works in Grim Dawn. Also note that for this video, like for all of my videos, you can find timestamps down below in the description, so if you want to skip to a certain part, feel free to use the timestamps down below in the description. Before I'm gonna talk about all the stuff that I just said, I'm gonna show you this early access forecast roadmap that they have on the forums right now. We are currently on beta patch 0.77F, which is like at the end of phase 2 apparently. So yeah, phase 1 already happened. Phase 2 is pretty much done, I think, as well, like not quite. I think some of these tooltip DPS are still missing. And then we have phase 3 and phase 4 coming up before the game is actually gonna release. So all of this stuff is probably gonna happen at some point this year, ideally. So as you can see, there's lots of awesome stuff that is coming up still, like a main chapter 8 and 9, so basically act 8 and 9 for the main campaign, the new class, dual wielding, yeah, some more legendary items, etc, like some updates apparently, some updates for endgame systems later as well, and even a loot filter. And this stuff down here is also gonna happen. They don't quite know when they're gonna do this, but it's gonna happen as well apparently. So let's take a look at the classes in Last Epoch. Currently there are only 4 out of the 5 classes available. There will be 5 classes at release. We have the Acolyte with the masteries Warlock, Lich and Necromancer. We have the Mage with the masteries Spellblade, Sorcerer and Runemaster. We got the Sentinel with the masteries Forge Guard, Paladin and Void Knight. And we got the Primalist with the masteries Shaman, Beastmaster and Druid. The last class is currently in progress and will be released in phase 3 of Last Epoch development. And it's gonna be called the Rogue, and it will have the masteries the Falconer, the Marksman and the Blade Dancer. So the Marksman is probably gonna be like the go-to ranged class, Blade Dancer is gonna be the go-to dual wield class, and Falconer is gonna be some kind of combo-ish class with a falcon pet. At least that's my guess from what we know so far. Okay, so how do passive skill trees in Last Epoch work? You have first your base class, right? So in this case, for example, Promalist. Basically you have 4 different tiers here. So tier 1, tier 2, tier 3 and tier 4. You need at least 5 points into each tier to unlock the next tier. So like putting 1 point here will give you a 1 point progress here in this bar at the right. Once you are at 5 points into, for example, natural attunement, you will unlock these talents and also the skill that is here onto the right. Then you can put 5 points into either of these 3. It doesn't have to be like 5, 0, 0. It can also be like 1, 2 and 2, for example, right? And you're gonna be at 10 points and you will have unlocked the next skill here as well as these talents here. Also note that some of these talents require you to have another talent spec'd into before. For example, you can only take Wisdom of the Wild if you have at least 1 point into natural attunement. How many points you need for that, it will be written over here if you hover over the connection. This means it will require 1 point into this to be able to use this. Or it will require 4 points into Wisdom of the Wild to be able to use Rotbane. Note that you get 1 passive point per level, starting at level 3, and you also will gain additional passive points through some of the main quests as well as some of the side quests. Compared to Grim Dawn, you definitely get more passive points through quests in this game in the main campaign than you get, for example, attribute points or skill points in Grim Dawn. So after you have put at least 20 points here, you can obviously put more points here. And also, like, once you've unlocked one of these tiers, you can still, like, if you don't like the skills in this tier, you can still put the points into the first tier. Once you have put at least 20 points here, you can click on unlock masteries, and now you can proceed to put points into your masteries here. Note that putting points into your mastery here does not lock you to a mastery, such as Grim Dawn would. You can freely combine points here with points here with points here. Also, currently respeccing passive points is really cheap. You can just go to any chronomancer and you just click on the skill that you would like to respec, and then it will tell you how expensive it is. For example, 500 gold here in this case. This is dependent on the tier where you like pull this from. Like the higher the tier and your mastery, the more gold it will cost you to remove that point. But yeah, it still only costs gold, and that's easily farmable, so it is pretty easy, I would say. But what the fuck is wrong with the Chronomancer, Ren? Like, why is she doing Ayagao face all the time? What? Hello? Are you okay? Anyway, for each point that you put here, you will again get 1 point here in this progression bar. So again, this marks 5 points into Shaman, this marks 10 points into Shaman, this will mark 20 points into Shaman. So basically each tier here again is 5 points, and these skills unlock in the masteries at different tiers. So this is like a tier 1, tier 2, tier 4 skill, you could say that kinda. Or for example, the Beastmaster has a tier 1, tier 2, tier 3, and a tier 8 skill, right? So not all of these masteries have the same amount of skills, and you will also not unlock them all at the same tier, which does make things a little bit interesting right now. Maybe they're gonna introduce some more skills to each mastery though, we'll see. I don't quite know that. Okay, but now how do you choose your mastery if not by like putting points into the mastery talents? Well, you choose your mastery basically after Act 1. After Act 1, you will have a quest that requires you to do like a small, I don't know, challenge dungeon, whatever you want us to call it. I mean, you just basically have to run through the dungeon, you don't have to like kill anything there. And at the end of that dungeon, you will meet like 3 spirits, basically. For example, in the case of Promalith, like the Beastmaster spirit, the Shaman spirit, and the Druid spirit, something like that. Or like masters of those masteries, right? And then you talk to all 3 of them, and then you will have to choose which mastery you want to actually master. Choosing a mastery will give you unique passive bonuses, as well as 1 unique active skill. For example, if you choose Beastmaster, you will get +1 companion summon limit, and also you and your minions will deal 50% increased physical damage. So you can choose this if you say want to play a pet build, or if you want to play like a melee berserker kind of character as well. Shaman will have the Storm Totem as well as like Totem mana cost and attunement. So yeah, Shaman is kind of the elemental totem caster, and Druid is kind of like the tanky guy with Shapeshift, the Werewere form. So the prominence is basically 3 things at least. It is a pet class, it is a totem caster, and it is a shapeshifter. Also, it has this kind of berserker touch to it, and you can try to combine all of those playstyles because of how the passive skill tree system in Last Epoch works. Now if you check out the Acolyte class, here again you can put 20 points into the base class. This is like the same system everywhere. Then you have the Necromancer, which again is kind of like a summoner, +1 skeletons limit, +1 skeleton mage limit. Your minions do increased damage, and also it has this unique summon a Wraith ability. The Necromancer seems to be more minion heavy even than the Beastmaster. It doesn't really have any like self buffs. I feel like this is even more minion-ish. But I've seen some really crazy videos or like streams where people have up to like, I don't know, 50 or 100 minions, kind of like that. So it can be pretty crazy. The Lich, on the other hand, is a very much lifesteal based shape-shifting character, so this will have 1% of damage leached as HP, and also spells and melee attacks deal increased damage equal to your missing HP. So the less HP you have, the more damage you will deal. Also, the exclusive skill is this cool Reaper form here. This guy can shapeshift to this Reaper form here. I think you can play the Lich pretty nicely as a caster, and also as a like Reaper form melee character probably as well. The third mastery for the Acolyte is gonna be the Warlock. That is still in development as well, and still a locked mastery, so we don't really know what the passive or the active unique skill is gonna be. Now the Sentinel is kind of the standard sword and board type of character that you can also play as a two-hander or with throwing abilities. Like you can throw hammers and you can throw shields. There's also a talent that allows you to throw axes. And again, here you have like the 20 points here. Overall, the Sentinel class focuses around physical, fire, and void damage, I would say. So you have 3 masteries. Number 1, the Void Knight, which is obviously like the void damage mastery. This will give you 50% increase melee void damage. Also, your melee attacks and void spells have 10% chance to be repeated by an echo half a second later. And yeah, here again you have the full passive tree for Void Knight. You have all these skills that you can unlock here. I haven't like tried this too much, so I can't really comment properly on this yet, but it looks pretty cool. Then you have the Forge Guard, which gives you 30% more armor and fire protection, and also 3% less damage taken for each consecutive hit, up to 30%. Again, you have passives here, active, Forge Strike. The Void Knight has like a Erasing Strike as a unique ability. Yeah, the Forge Guard has the Forge Strike as a unique ability, and again here you have the full passive tree. This guy's a little bit more about throwing weapons and block chance, and I don't quite understand Forge Guard that well yet, but he seems to be like a tank character that tries to like hybridize throwing and melee attacks. And also the third mastery specialization is the Paladin. This one has a Holy Aura as an exclusive skill, and you deal increased fire and physical damage equal to your percent health remaining, and also you gain 1% healing effectiveness per point of attunement. So this is kind of like the standard Holy Warrior, Healer, Tank, right? You have healing abilities here, Smite, Holy Fire, stuff like that, right? Judgment. Note that there's no holy damage in this game, it's basically like fire, physical damage, and lots of healing. Moving on to the Mage class. So the Mage is kind of your standard elemental caster, and it is an intelligence user as well. You want to heavily invest into intelligence on this guy to improve most of his intelligence scaling skills, which means you will also play around Ward for the most time. So like Ward is gonna be your primary defense on a Mage. So yeah, you can focus on cold damage, lightning damage, or fire damage, or like all 3 together. And then you have the masteries called Sorcerer, Spellblade, and Runemaster. Runemaster is not out yet, it's probably gonna come in phase 4 apparently. Sword does give you 50 bonus mana, and also spells deal increased damage equal to their mana cost, and has this exclusive skill, the Meteor. So Sorcerer is like your typical caster, and it mostly focuses on like fire and lightning. Then you have the Spellblade. Spellblade is like your melee mage, it's like kind of a spellbreaker in Grim Dawn. It's a like melee skill focused mage rather. Most of its skills are rather cold and lightning focused, but you can also play this with fire damage abilities like Flame Reave. And the Spellblade gives you 5 ward gained on melee hit, and also mana spent on melee attacks is converted to ward. So yeah, you do definitely want to play this with melee attacks. Also the exclusive skill, Shadow Strike, is this rather cool looking cold damage ability, which kind of reminds you of like Cold Killer's Tempest, but actually in this game it's better than in Grim Dawn. And yeah, the third mastery, Remaster, we don't know anything about this yet. Now let's also quickly talk about the skills in this game. How does getting skills and skilling your skills work? So you start the game at level 1 and you have usually 1 skill already at level 1. And then you gain a skill at level 2, a skill at level 3, 1 at level 4, 6, 1 at 9, 1 at 18, 1 at 19. That's how it is right now. This might be a little bit different for some classes, but like it's always the same until like level 9, I think. And then you also have skill specialization slots. You gain these at level 4, 9, 19, 34, and 49. Once you have, say, level 4, you can put one of your skills in there. Now, this is not the only way how to gain skills. You can also gain skills through your masteries, right? Once you put 5 points here, like you need to put 5 points here, here, or here, right? You will gain this skill. At 10 points, you will gain this skill. At 15 points, you will gain access to this skill. Then you have the exclusive skills from your masteries, and then you also gain skills for like 5, 10, 15, and so on points here. Right? Note that in theory, you could probably get all of these skills from all different masteries if you just had like enough passive skill points to spec into like all of these trees. But right now, I think the maximum amount of passive skill points that you can get is around 116. That amount is probably gonna be a little bit higher on release, maybe, I don't know, 120 or 130 maybe, something like that at max. But yeah, that's not going to be enough for you to max out all of these trees, as you need 20 points for base class and at least 50 points for each mastery tree to max it out. You could not get all of the mastery exclusive skills obviously because you can only choose one mastery per character. Now, how do these skill trees work? You can see that right now not every skill has a skill tree. This symbol over here, this shows you whether or not a skill has a skill tree right now. So these don't have a skill tree right now. On release, they want every skill to have a skill tree. So let's check out, for example, Rive. This is the skill tree for Rive, which is like a melee 3-hit combo attack, kind of like a crossover between Cadence and Blade Arc. And then you can see that some of these nodes just like give you some additional damage, like Void Damage here, Flat Void Damage here. This one will modify your 3rd hit to no longer make enemies bleed, but deal like 70% more base damage. Some give you like a buff that gives you like Global Leech, for example, and so on and so on. Like some of these also completely change the way these skills work, or they will like have the ability to summon additional skills. For example, this Vengeance skill has very early on the chance to summon a Essence of Revenge, and you can press Alt here to see what this Void Essence actually does. It will grant you additional Void damage, increased mana damage, and so on and so on. Many of these skills have like things that they can spawn on chance. Right? For example, an Iron Blade here. Iron Blade is a melee attack, blah blah blah, right? Some of these skills are really interesting and have like very interesting modifiers. So there's like a huge combination of skills that you can choose and specialize in, and then you can like differentiate your skills to what you want them to be. Also, if you want to respec skills, that is very easy to do as well. It is a little bit more punishing, I would say, because, well, you don't have to pay gold, but you will have to pay with experience. So you can choose to either remove one level, like 1 point of the skill. You can, for example, remove 1 point here, right, or 1 point here, like wherever you would like to. Obviously, you cannot remove points that are needed for connections, like you can't click on those here, but you could, for example, remove one here. Respecting a single node is going to reduce the skill's level by 1, which means that you cannot put the point that you respect here into something else immediately. You have to level up the skill again first. But in the end game, that is like very easy to do. You can also choose to completely despecialize a skill and then choose another skill to put here instead. But then both this skill and the new skill that you're gonna choose are both gonna be level 1. So it works a little bit like Devotions in Grim Dawn, I would say, except that Devotions in Grim Dawn keep their level. If you spec out of them, in this game they do not. Note that while the max level of a character right now is level 100, the max level for skills is level 20. So you can only get 20 points to spend here in this tree. I'm not sure if that's gonna change for release or not. That's just how it is right now. And I guess that's also how it's gonna stay, because 20 points seems very reasonable to me. Alright, so moving on to itemization. How does gear and the idle system in Last Epoch work? So you can get gear in 4 ways. Either a monster drops an item and you can just pick it up, or it drops from a chest that you clicked on, or you buy it from one of these shops.
Wanna try your luck?
Or you gamble for items over here at the gambler.
Not bad.
So far, the best items I got were via gambling, and maybe they're gonna nerf gambling a bit, I don't know yet. But yeah, you can just roll here, and it's gonna give you either a magic or a rare item, like roll random affixes, right? You can also press refresh here, and then you will get new rolls, like new items here, which you again can roll.
Wanna go again?
Really? And you can get everything from a white item without any affixes up to a unique item here through the gambler. Now you have common items. Common items will just look like this on the ground. Blue items, which will look like this on the ground, and you have yellow items which look like this on the ground, right? Then you obviously have unique items, and you will have set items that look the same as unique items, but they are green instead. When you take a look at these blue and yellow items here on the ground, you see that this one has like 2 dots here, and this one has 2 dots here and 1 dot here. This means that this one has 2 affixes, 2 prefixes rather, and this one has 2 prefixes and 1 suffix. Non-unique items in Last Epoch can roll up to 4 affixes. If an item has 1 or 2 affixes, it will be a blue item. And if it has 3 or 4, it will be a yellow item. When you hold these items in your stash, you can also see the 3 affixes here on the side. And you will note that the first 2 have like a yellow bar at the left. This means that those are prefixes, and the third one is a suffix. Now on top of all these items that you can find here, you can also find affix shards. Now affix shards basically contain an affix, and you can use these shards to forge them into items. So once you've found some shards here, you can press store crafting items, and then they will be stored in the crafting box basically. This always works where like whether you are out of town or in town, doesn't matter. Like you always just click this and they will all be transferred to your crafting stash. Note that your crafting stash is separate from your normal stash as well, so pressing this button will not make a mess of your normal stash. Now, if you press F or click on the forge here, this window will open up, and here you can drag an item in or just shift right click. And then you will have the item in here. And now you can forge affix shards into this item. Now, how does forging work? Here it will list you all the affix shards that you have that you can also use for this weapon. Note that this weapon already has 2 prefixes, so you cannot roll another prefix. Because of that, these are grayed out. But you could still roll another suffix here. So these are all in blue. The ones that are showcased in yellow here are pre or suffixes that the item already has. And you can improve the tier of that suffix. Suffixes have different tiers, like you have tier 1 all the way to tier 5. So I have currently a tier 1 minion damage one here, tier 2 melee physical damage, tier 2 critical chance multiplier. If you check out the item here and press Alt and Control, you will see information about the tier and also the range of rolls that you can get within that tier. Basically, the higher your tier, the higher your stats on the affixes are. And within that tier, it can also roll between a min and a max. Let's say I want to add some void protection to the sword. I can just click on the void protection shard here, and then you can just press forge. Now, since I have not forged with this weapon yet, the first affix forging will always have a 1% chance for success usually, and will add 5 crafting instability to the item. Plus 5 crafting instability on this one now. It doesn't quite show you the crafting instability on the item yet, maybe they're gonna change that. And now it also shows you that I have a 10% minor fracture chance. Minor fractures mean that the last thing that you're trying to forge into this will not work. So if I forge now and this does not succeed, the affix shard will be lost. This item will not have an increased void protection. Void protection will not increase from tier 1 to tier 2. And also the item will be fractured, which means that I cannot use this any further for forging. And also there's no way to repair these items. So once an item is fractured, it's basically maxed out, right? You cannot do anything else with this item anymore. You can still use the item, and there is no like durability system in this game, like I think in older Diablo games. You don't have to like repair your weapons. They will not break in combat, stuff like that. But they can fracture, and they can also break while forging. After you have like some more instability on these, right? Let's try to add this up a bit. Right, see here, for example, it will tell you that you have a 25% chance for a minor fracture and a 5% chance for a damaging fracture. Damaging fractures, I don't quite understand how they work yet, but for sure they will not only make the last affix shard not work on the item, it will also destroy some of the already existing affixes here. So you don't want an item to be damaged at all. And also there's a chance after damaging, like if you have even more instability on an item, you can also get a chance to roll like a destructive fracture. I think a destructive fracture should mean that it will just completely destroy the item, like it's gonna be gone. So yeah, I mean, once you have like destructive chances here, you should just stop crafting. And also damaging fractures can be really devastating already. Now, you cannot repair items, but you can use support glyphs. Right now you only have 2 glyphs. You have the glyph of stability. This will reduce the crafting instability to something between 2 and 5 instead of 5. So if you want to like continue crafting, like continue forging on an item for a longer period of time, you should add glyphs of stability starting at the first forging step that you do. Now the second glyph is the glyph of the Guardian, If you use this, it will transfer your minor fracture chance into no fracture chance, your damaging into minor, and destructive into damaging. So in this case, it will remove my minor chance and will give me a 5% minor only, right? These glyphs of the Guardian are, in my opinion, very good once you have a chance for damaging fractures. You don't need to use glyphs of the Guardian for minor fracture chances, but once you have a damaging fracture chance here, you should definitely start using these and continue crafting like this. Now, what else can I do with the forging system? You can also retrieve affix shards from items. Say you have, for example, void protection on this, right? We just forged it into this item. But I don't want to have it on my sword, I want to have it on my helmet, right? I already have void protection here on my helmet, and I would like to increase the tier of that suffix here, right? But say I don't have any void protection shards left. I can put this here, and this one has 3 void protection shards on it, right? I can use runes. For example, the Rune of Shattering will destroy an item and give me a random amount of affixes up to the max, right? So I can get like up to 2 physical damage shards, I could get up to 2 critical chance multiplier shards, I could get up to 1 minion damage shard, and I could get up to 3 void protection shards. Let's try this, let's see how many you get here. You got 2 physical melee, 1 crit chance multiplier, and 1 minion damage shard. I did not get a single void protection shard, unlucky. Now the next one is the Rune of Refinement. This will reroll all affixes on an item within their tier. So say you have an item like this pair of gloves here, and it only has low rolls, right? It has 3 vitality even though it can roll between 3 and 4. It has 1 HP regen per second even though it can roll between 1 and 2. It has like 31 health, that's like average, alright. But maybe I'm not gonna care about dodge rating 21, maybe that's also alright, but maybe I'm not gonna care about that, right? So let's put this here, and then you can use 1 Rune of Refinement, and then it will reroll all of those affixes within that tier. It will also add to crafting instability though, and it will also have a chance to fracture this item. So let's try this. There we go, we got lucky. And I got, actually, yeah, I have like the same HP, I lost some dodge rating, I have 2 HP regen per second instead of 1, and I have 4 vitality instead of 3. Obviously doing this early in the game is kind of a waste of like Runes of Refinement, because I could have just used more affix shards on this, so you wanna do this only in the endgame, I think. Like, Runes of Refinement are really nice for endgame min-maxing, but other than that, like while leveling, I wouldn't even touch these. Then you also have the Rune of Removal. Say you find an item that could serve as a nice starting point for an item that you would like to forge on, and it has maybe, I don't know, 3 or 4 affixes already, and like 2 of them are good, 2 of them are bad, or like 2 of them are good, 1 of them is bad, right? Let's just assume that for my build, melee lightning damage is good, elemental protection is good, but like melee fire damage is bad, right? So I could reuse this Rune of Removal here and hope for like a 33% of it hitting the fire damage. Let's try. It actually worked this time. That was super lucky. But you can already see that this thing is also very RNG heavy, and I mean like 33% aren't really good chances, so like if it's 50-50 it's also not that great. And the last rune, of which you cannot see the name right now because I don't have any on this character, will remove all affixes on an item, so it will basically put it down to a white item, which in my opinion is kinda useless because you don't want to use like white items as a base to like start forging on them anyway. Unless it's like a, I don't know, super rare base white item, but I don't think that even exists in the game, at least not yet. Yeah, maybe this will be useful in the future, but right now I think it's pretty useless. But yeah, because of the way how the forging system works in this game, sometimes blue items are actually more desired than yellow items as like a starting point for forging. Because for example, a blue item with 2 desired affixes is better than a yellow item with 2 desired but like 1 undesired affix, right? Because on the yellow item you would first try to like remove the 1 undesired affix, or just play with like only 3 affixes, right, that are useful for your build. Whereas on a blue item with like 2 desired affixes, you could just like forge into additional affixes that you want. I mean, obviously a yellow item with 4 desired affixes would be the best, but I mean, good luck with that. So basically because of that, you should always look out for both blue and yellow items and check out the affixes rather than the rarity. And because of that system, I'm also really looking forward towards loot filters, which are gonna come at some point later into the game as well, before release hopefully, since that will make searching for specific affixes rather than specific rarities way easier. Now the idle system in Last Epoch works in the following way. You have these idle slots here. You will first start out with a only 2x2 space, and then you will get like more space the further you get in campaign, like the more quests you do, right? And in the end you will have all of this unlocked. And there are small idols, they're like 1x2 idols, there are 2x1 idols, and there are also bigger like class specific idols. Now these generic idols here just give you like some generic stats, as you can see, like defenses, offensive stats, and you can combine them freely as you can put them here. Higher tier idols like on this shaman here will have, for example, a chance to cast a skill like this one. This is like an auto cast right now, a 18% chance to cast a masteries skill every 5 seconds, give you crit chance avoidance or like shock on hit, stuff like that. There are like some idols that are very interesting here, and they can actually be game changing for your build. Also note that you cannot forge idols, you cannot gamble for idols either, so like idols are only random drop. Because of that, I find myself mostly idol hunting for endgame, like doing, I don't know, arena or monolith to get random good idols that I can find, rather than hunting for items, because most of the time the best items are like items that you just gamble for and then you forge your desired affixes on top of that. So once you are ready to create a new character, you have these small cutscenes here at the start, which are quite okay.
I am the mage, raised in the scholarly city Welrin, and trained in the arcane arts. I became one of the elders. I took on an apprentice to whom I showed kindness and compassion. This was folly. She grew rebellious, entertained dark arts, and was exiled. My guilt over her fate drove me to leave Welrin. Years I spent searching for her, only to hear that Welrin was conquered by the sun god, Raye. Now I travel back to Welrin, determined to fix my mistakes.
So yeah, these kind of intros are kind of neat, and they also show that there are some connections between the characters, like in this case the mage and the acolyte, and also it tells you a little bit about the overall story of the game. Now the tutorial level of this game basically explains you what to do as well. Like, alright, so let's take this moment here at the start of the game to talk quickly about the UI. First of all, I want to apologize for things like these terrible shadows. I do have to run the game on rather lowish settings because my computer is not good enough. So down here you have the menu, and here, down here this menu, you will have, well, the escape main menu where you have like all the settings, right? You can put everything here as you would like to have it. Then you have the social page. Here you can see all your friends online. Then you have the ladder. Here you can see the arena ladders. This is just for endgame stuff. Yeah, I don't know, sometimes it doesn't show. There we go. Oh yeah, I dropped down to rank 40 now. Then you have the inventory. You have cosmetics. These are, well, not in the game yet. You have the map. And here in the map, you can already see that there are all 4 different eras, right? You have the ancient era, the divine era, the Imperial era, and the Ruined era. I don't really know too much about the lore of this game, but apparently, like at the start of the Imperial era, the humanity is starting to get effed, right? And in the Imperial area, you have like lots of undeads, and in the Ruined area, basically the world is being swallowed by the void, so you have lots of void enemies, and also that's why like large parts of these areas here are already swallowed by the void, and humanity is basically just trying to survive in small refuges such as the council chambers. Then you can also take a look at your quests here. You can see your quests. You can also decide to like stop tracking them or to track them. Then they will be over here at the right. And you can also open up this window by clicking on this button here, or you can also choose to hide all of them by clicking on this button. You have a map in the top right corner, just like in Grim Dawn, but you can also press tab to have an overlay map. You can like toggle this on and off.
Are not kind to my bones, but I must hurry. Welrin is still a few days away.
Yeah, we're gonna hurry later. Then you have character, right? This is your character page. Here you can see your attributes like strength, dexterity, intelligence, attunement, and vitality. So strength does give you increased armor and also scales strength skills. Dexterity gives you more dodge and scales dexterity skills. Intelligence scales intelligence skills and gives you ward retention. What exactly ward retention is, I'm going to talk about that later. Then you have attunement. Attunement gives you elemental dress and also improves attunement scaled skills. And then you have vitality, which just gives you 15 void, necrotic, and poison protection. And over here you have HP, mana, HP regen, mana regen, and movement speed. Also, you can see which game mode you chose over here in the top right. Over here you have armor and protections, you have armor. Note that if you compare armor to Grim Dawn, armor is more like physical resistance in this game and not like armor that has like a flat absorption value, such as in Grim Dawn. Lightning, cold, fire, void, necrotic, and poison as, well, protections. And this system does not work like in Grim Dawn. Like, you don't have percentages that you add together and then you have like 80% really easily. In this game, you get a flat amount of armor or lightning or cold or fire or void or necrotic or poison protection. So these flat armor values basically give you effective HP against, for example, physical. That's what they give you, effective HP against lightning, against cold, etc, etc. So how does this work? I mean, it will basically take your HP and add those protections on top. So you have 100 HP and 20 physical armor, so basically against physical damage you have 120 HP. Now the 17% down here is basically your total HP divided by total HP plus armor, and then you have 1 minus this value is the amount of mitigation that you basically have against that damage type. Now, because of this equation, it is way harder to get to like 80% or 90% resistances in Last Epoch than in Grim Dawn. On the other hand, though, I have not seen like a max so far. Like the highest I got for, say, for armor, for example, was like 93%. Now, there are also additional defenses. You have block chance. You can block a hit from an attack or a spell. And you can also block without a shield in this game. It is usually easier to get block chance with a shield though. Block chance is additive though, just like in Grim Dawn, like 1% block chance is just 1% here, and like if you get 10% block chance and another 10% block chance on top of that, you're gonna have 20% block chance. Now if you block, you will take these values here and add to those your block protection. So you have a block protection value that will be added to all of these whenever you block, and that will result in a different mitigation here. Also, there's block armor. Block armor is basically like block protection, but it only works for armor. Again, you have pretty nice tooltips here, and they actually do make sense, and if you read this stuff, you will also understand how defenses work in this game. For example, here on this Void Knight, you can see these default protections, and you can see this block protection. And then you can see the resulting mitigation values, so like mitigation percentages for whenever I block. And you can see that these are obviously higher than these values, like these percent values here, because this block protection will be added towards all of these stats. And if I had additional block armor, this will also be added to the physical mitigation as well. Dodge is a flat value, so apparently the higher the enemy level is, the less dodge you will have. So your dodge chance in this game basically depends on your dodge rating, reduced by level of the enemies that you face. So the higher your level, like the higher the enemy level, the harder it's gonna be to max out your dodge. But at the same time, you'll also like be able to have higher dodge rating, usually the higher of a level you have. I mean, for example, my shaman has around 40% dodge pretty easily. Then also you have stun avoidance. This is a little bit like stun resistance in Grim Dawn, I would say. You also see the formula here. This is how you basically determine whether or not you get stunned. And also you cannot get chain stunned in this game, because when you are stunned, you become immune to stuns for 1 second after the stun ends. Then you have this thing called a chance to receive a glancing blow. This was very confusing for me at first, but like the description is pretty straightforward actually. Like, grants a chance to only receive a glancing blow when you take a hit. You take half damage from glancing blows. So basically, this kind of works the same as block chance, like you just add up your percentages. So while leveling, glancing blow is not that important, I would say. But once you're done with the main campaign, once you enter endgame, like monolith or arena, you want to get this to 100% ASAP. And it's also not even that hard to get this to 100% right now, because there is a prefix that gives you glancing blow percent for each other item that also has the same prefix. You just need to like put 4 or 5 of those prefixes on like 4 to 5 different items, and then you will have like 100% very quickly. So basically this is a form of endgame damage mitigation. Yeah, if you receive a glancing blow, you will take only 50% damage. This is multiplicative with all other damage reductions. So for endgame, you want this to 100% to take basically 50% decreased damage across the board. Whether or not this is a good system, I'm not quite sure about it actually yet. That's just how it is right now. Then also there is damage dealt to attackers, which is kind of like retaliation damage. Then you have damage reflected, which is like reflected damage, obviously. Also, damage dealt to attackers ignores attackers' defense. So that's pretty interesting. But then you have like some other ways of like sustaining yourself. I should like explain what the ward is. So ward is kind of like an energy shield, but it kind of works the other way around. So usually energy shield, for example, it regenerates whenever you are out of combat, right? But the ward works the other way around. It degenerates whenever you are out of combat. Or rather, it always degenerates whether you are in combat or not. So you get ward through, say, skills or like on-hit effects or on-attack effects. And if you are not in combat and you're not taking damage, this ward is gonna decrease by itself. Unless you have ward retention. And ward retention does reduce the rate of ward decay. If you have like enough ward retention, you will have like certain values of ward where your ward is gonna stabilize and not reduce itself any further. So basically, the higher your ward retention is, the higher values of ward you can sustain. And also ward retention does scale with intelligence, so the more intelligence you have, or like the more ward retention you have from items or skills or passives, the more ward you are able to sustain. Also, ward will be affected by resistances in the same way as HP. Like depending on how much ward you have, you can see these numbers like going up and down. Next up we have critical strike avoidance. I think for endgame you wanna max this to 100% as well, but you wanna do that after glancing blow. And crit chance avoidance basically gives you a chance to downgrade an enemy's crit to a regular hit. So crit chance avoidance is a little bit like defensive ability in Grim Dawn. To not get crit in this game, you need crit chance avoidance, which is, again, while leveling or like while doing main campaign stuff, in my opinion, very hard to get, and you shouldn't necessarily focus on this. But like for endgame, it's very interesting and probably mandatory. And then you also have these stats like health gain on hit. Note that on hit in this game does include spells. On melee, a hit is only for melee hits. Then you have on kill and on block, well, these should be self-explanatory. Then you have damage leached as health. This does affect all of your damage, and it will not be instantly like health gained on hit, melee, hit, kill or block. This will be over time, faster than regen, but like slower than health gain on hit. Then you also have melee damage leached as HP and spell damage leached as HP, which is basically the same as this. But this one is only for melee and this is only for spells. Then you have a full page about minions as well. I did not really play around minions so far because you know me, I kinda don't like minion builds too much. But yeah, you have all the information here, I guess, that you need. Before we move on to these other stats, I haven't actually talked about damage stats so far, right? So you have like the usual suspects of an ARPG. You have increased cast speed, you have melee attack speed, you have throwing attack speed, and I guess they also maybe introduce something like projectile speed as well for the bows that are gonna come in the next couple of months. Then you have critical chance, that's basically global, right? Then you have spell critical, melee critical, critical multiplier, increased spell damage, increased meta damage, increased throwing attack damage, increased stun chance, and increased melee stun chance. So these three are basically like all damage, right? Like global all damage. This is just for spells, this is just for meta attacks, this is just for throwing attack damages. You can always hover over these abilities here and they will also always tell you like what they are. Like this one is a lightning damage spell that scales of intelligence. So stun chance is kind of interesting because stun chance does depend on the damage that you deal. Like, well, you can see the equation here, how it's calculated, and basically that's how it works. Melee stun chance, this is like additional stat for melee only, like melee can have additional stun chance. Other than that, you have global. Like these are basically like the percentages in Grim Dawn, right? That's like physical percent, lightning percent, cold percent damage, fire, void, necrotic, poison, and damage over time. Note that damage over time is multiplicative stats for all of these, which I'm going to talk about here in a second. So in this game you don't have a separate multiplier for bleed or for poison, etc, etc. You have just a damage over time multiplicator. Also here in the bottom right corner you can see your basic attack DPS. I mean, this is as helpful or unhelpful as the basic attack DPS counter in Grim Dawn. If you're playing like a melee damage scaling ability, this can give you a rough idea of like how much damage you deal. Other than that, I've not really seen a proper DPS meter in this game yet. The best way to like see your damage is just to like test it out at either target dummies or like enemies that you fight. Let's talk about these other stats. Now you have bleeding damage, poison damage, and ignite damage as your 3 damage over time damaging elements. So bleed deals physical damage over time. It's basically kind of like internal trauma in Grim Dawn. And you can have multiple stacks of bleed at once. This is also interesting. If you have a chance to bleed enemies that is over 100%, you will have a chance to apply multiple stacks. And well, you can stack bleed stacks, I think, indefinitely, and bleed damage will have a fixed duration of 4 seconds, as you can see here. About poison chance, now I don't quite understand why they didn't give poison and poison like 2 different names. Like this one is flat poison, the other one is damage over time poison, apparently. I mean, this is kind of like acid damage in Grim Dawn, right? This is kind of like flat. Anyways, so poison has kind of the same thing as bleed going for it. It lasts for 4 seconds and deals damage. Also, if you have over 100% chance, you have a chance to apply multiple stacks. You can have multiple stacks, I don't know, like up to infinite stacks, I guess. There's one special thing about poison though. For like each poison stack is gonna multiply the poison damage, I think the flat poison damage, or like all poison damage, I don't really know, that enemies take by 8%. The next up you have Ignite. Ignite is fire damage over time, and yeah, that kind of works like poison and bleed, right? The only difference is that Ignite deals damage over 3 seconds and not over 4 seconds. Now, the next couple of ailments that you have here are rather of a debuff style. You have Shock. Shock does reduce elemental protection and stun avoidance by 100 flat, which basically makes them more vulnerable to stuns and elemental damage. Again, you can have multiple stacks. Increased shock effect is gonna increase the value 100 by the percentage that you have here. So if you have like 100% increased shock effect, it will reduce elemental protection and stun avoidance by 200 per stack instead. Chill chance. Chilling does reduce attack speed, casting speed, and movement speed by 12% per stack, but it only stacks up to 3 times. Slow chance will reduce any movement speed by 20%. It will not reduce enemy attack or casting speed, and also this can stack up to 3 times only. Blind chance. This one will blind enemies, and also if an enemy is blinded, it will halve their crit chance and cause them to aim erratically, which makes them miss range attacks, apparently. I think that like once you have 100% crit avoidance, that's pretty useless anyway. Also, you have the freeze rate multiplier. Cold skills have usually a chance to freeze on hit, equal to their freeze rate divided by the enemy's health. So like the more HP an enemy has, the harder it is to freeze enemies. I like this a lot actually, because this way, I mean, imagine this being a thing in Grim Dawn, right? You could have a spell like OFF still work on bosses sometimes, but it wouldn't be as OP as it is against like smaller enemies. Yeah, maybe Grim Dawn should have done this the same way, right, with freezing. And then it shows you your potion slots here. I mean, by default, at the start of the game, you will only have 2 potions at once. And note that you can only hold potions in your belt. Like, you can't have, I don't know, 1000 potions like in Grim Dawn, right? You will only have a max of like, I don't know, 2 at the start of the game, right? And then later like maybe 5 or 6 depending on the belt and depending on the affixes on the belt. You're very limited with your potions in this game. On the other hand, potions do drop a lot as well, and they have no cooldown. So don't like hold back. If you need to use a potion, use it. You will usually still have enough potions. And also it will tell you here how much these heal you, right? That's like 50 plus 4 times character level. And yeah, potions obviously drop from enemies that you kill. And I've noticed that some bosses also drop potions at certain HP thresholds as well. Kind of wondering why it says 54 HP here, which is correct, but it actually tells you it only heals for 51 here. This is kind of weird. Increased chance to find potions. I mean, yeah, with this you can find more potions, right? Mana efficiency, this will reduce the mana cost of all of your abilities. Chance to chill attackers. This is like chill on retaliation. This is slow on retaliation. This is shock on retaliation. This is increased effectiveness for healing skills. This does not affect health gain from potions, health regen, leech, or health gained on hit, so this does not apply to any sort of lifesteal or potion healing. This is just for healing abilities. Then you also have CR, and then you have this pretty fun stat that shows you like how many unique items you have picked up so far. So after making it through the tutorial level, you will be at the first hub of the game. You have the typical NPCs here. You have a shop. This is just a basic shop where you can buy some items and you can also sell your items. So you can just shift right click an item to buy or sell. You have this guy over here. This guy is the gambler.
Try your luck.
He's basically a shop that also allows you to gamble for items. Here early in Act 1, I only recommend you to roll for items that only cost 50 gold, because you're not gonna have lots of gold, especially when you're playing solo self-found. And usually the affixes are like more important than the base anyway, at least this early on. There are 2 exceptions to that, and number 1 being weapons. You might wanna roll for like a higher tier weapon early to get like more damage. And also in Act 1 you have these leather gloves which cost 400 to gamble for, but they have void protection as a base, and in Act 1 you want lots of void protection, so this is pretty good. And then over here you have the chronomancer where you can respec your passive points. After defeating the final boss of Act 1, you will make it here to the end of time. And here you also have your usual NPCs, like you have the gambler over here, you have a shop over here, and you have a graphic box here on the stairs, and you have this chest here. There are several stash chests across this end of time actually. There's another one over here. It's like the same stash though. And then you also have the chrono monster down here, and a forge here to the bottom right. I still don't know what these like random forges are supposed to do in the game, because you can just press F to open the forge anyway, and like you can forge wherever you want right now. Maybe that's gonna change, we'll see. And also this is where the bazaar is gonna be later. The game will have trading, and here are like some other bazaar vendors as well. Trading and multiplayer are not currently in the game, but they will come pretty soon this year at some point. So let us talk about endgame challenges and dungeons. So you can access endgame stuff right now actually after Act 1 already. So if you want to try it out, you can already do that. However, I do recommend you to play through the chapters first, because you will get skill points, passive points, idle slots via the main campaign and not via endgame. You always need to have all of your idle slots and also all of your passive points. You have the monolith of fate. How does this work? Well, you can roll a modifier. This is a little bit kind of similar to, say, Shadow Realm, or like the dungeons of Vulcan, whatever they were called there, where you like roll the modifier, kind of like rifts or great rifts, whatever you want to call them, right? And you can choose either this or this. Like in this timeline, enemies have additional armor and protections equal to 50% of their HP. In this timeline, enemies have 25% increased HP and focus on attacking players. And then you can like choose whichever you would like to have here, right? And then you press start, or you can also reroll them for a small amount of gold cost. You can only do this once though, as you can see here. Now, let's just choose a timeline here. Now we are here in the Serpentine Desert. I think these are actually not like randomly generated. It's kind of like an SR where you have like a fixed couple of levels that you can like roll, and you will be like in one of those at random, right? But I believe at least the enemies are always random, so basically just like SR, right? Also, each monolith will have a different objective. In this case, it's like Slay Spreading Frost. Usually it's like either to kill a boss, or like to cleanse a chest that spawns like hordes of enemies, or like to cleanse or destroy several different totems that have been put randomly across this map. So you can choose to kill all these trash mobs here as well, because they do drop items and gold here as well. Or you could just rush for the objective. Currently don't have like a bar that you have to fill first, like an SR, you would have to like kill enemies and either their souls to like fill the bar, or like in Diablo where you have to like kill random enemies to like spawn the Rift Guardian. Here you can just rush for the objective, which I'm not sure if that's a good thing. Maybe they should change that, because it kind of allows you to just rush through everything here. I mean, sure, you're missing out on some XP that you would get from like killing these mobs, but if you're just interested in like the chests at the end, I think you could just like rush through and not care about all these mobs here. So once you've met the enemy here that you need to kill, you just kill it, right? That can be actually kinda hard sometimes. And yeah, once you've killed the enemy, you get some loot here, you can open a portal, and that portal is gonna take you to the Echo of a Ward, which is basically like a loot room between monolith levels, right? You get a bonus chest here, you have a shop here, and your stash, and a forge, which again is kinda useless, and you have this monolith here, which allows you to push on further to like the next monolith level, right? So the first couple of timelines will only have like modifiers that will only apply for one timeline, and then later you will have modifiers that will apply for the next 2 or 3 or 4 or even like 7 timelines. So you can stack up multiple mutators here, as you will see. So for example, my shaman, you can see that I have like, for example, 16 timelines conquered here. I have already these existing modifiers. I can choose to roll an additional modifier when I do the next monolith timeline, or I can reset the monolith and it will be taken back to timeline number 1. Also, the monolith chest has a chance to give you an arena key, and you need arena keys to enter the arena. Now, the arena is the other endgame mode that is available right now. You have this endless arena, you put a key here and then you press enter the arena. The arena is kind of like the Crucible and Grim Dawn, and you also have this ladder that is about arena waves right now. So the arena is like the, in quotation marks, competitive endgame mode right now, where you also have like a ladder and you fight for like who has the highest wave that he did, etc. Right? And you have separate ladders for hardcore, softcore, hardcore solo, and softcore solo. The Last Epoch website also mentioned some other endgame systems like the Gates of Memoriam, Epoch's Call, and the Timeless Colosseum, which actually seems like they're gonna make a PvP a thing for this game, as well as the Lost Memories. I'm gonna drop a link down below so that you can just read all the stuff here on the homepage as well if you're interested. And even though I hope that I gave you a decent overview here about the game and like about everything that's going to come as well, I'm still pretty new to the game myself right now, and I probably cannot answer all of your questions, so it is probably better to ask the people here in the forum than to ask in my comment section below. That said, if you guys have anything to add to this video, please make sure to comment down below and tell me what I did wrong, what I missed, etc, etc. If you have reached this end of the video, congratulations, you've probably made it through like 50 minutes of hearing me talk about Last Epoch, and this is a pretty good game. So if you would like to support a upcoming RPG that looks pretty well done so far, looks very promising at least so far as well. Also, I think Dammit would agree with me here, because otherwise he would not have done this awesome lastepochtools.com site. He made a pretty awesome item database for Last Epoch, and hopefully the game is gonna come this year and not next year. But we don't need another Wilson moment, so they should take like all the time they need. So if you would like to support Last Epoch and also play the beta yourself, then go ahead and buy the game. But also note that the game is gonna be a little bit cheaper on release than right now. Anyway, thank you so much everybody for watching, and I hope I will see you again on the next video as well. Make sure to follow and subscribe if you liked this video and you would like to see more Last Epoch stuff and also more Grim Dawn videos in the future.